To come talk. Once we call those numbers, you will come up either as a single individual, or if there's 6 of you, we'll get you enough chairs, and we're gonna have a one-on-one conversation. Just me and the person that we're talking to. There will be microphones so everybody can hear it, but we will be having a one-on-one conversation. During that time, we ask that everybody be respectful of the citizen and let them do their talking. Don't interrupt them, don't make an unintentional noise, respect them. If you want to talk, you'll have your time as well.
Are we limited on time?
You are not limited on time.
Or questions?
Or scopes. I will work through your scope to get to a defined scope.
Okay.
So that we do go through. And I will say, I may not know the answer to every question you have. That's entirely possible. I am not omniscient.
If you don't know the answer, how will we know what the answer are? What's your plan on getting that answer back to us?
So, if it relates to a forensic audit,
Right.
if I don't already know the answer to that question, we will create a scope around that question that will determine the answer to that question, and then that will go on the list for review that we will bring to council. The goal of this is to create 2 lists. One that is the most important, and that will go to council to vote on an RFP for outside services. So the most important ones y'all want to do, we will submit to council for that. The others, or the ones that y'all feel are very, very focused or very niche, or feel comfortable with me doing, that'll go on a list for me to do in-house when I have the time to do those reviews.
Can you explain what an RFP is?
Yeah, so an RFP is a request for proposal. This is where we create a document and then send it out for businesses to send us, yes, we want to do this is how much we would charge, this is what the time frame of that would look like, this is what our expertise is, saying that we could actually accomplish that task.
Do you know how once you do an RFP, how are they finally decided upon which business will get the contract?
So there'll be all bids come in blind, so nobody looks at them until the actual time when there's a bid opening. That is a public event. Anyone can come and see. All bids are open and read to the public. At that point, bids will be scored based on a preset set of criteria. Typically, those criteria include cost, expertise of the bidding entity, history, whether they've actually performed these types of things before, time frame, when can they start, when can they finish, if we choose to have it in there, whether they are a minority or female-owned business, or HUD, or something like that. The criteria choice is ours, so we would preset that ahead of time. The public would be able to see that and provide discussion on that. Ultimately, everything gets approved through council before it goes out.
And they don't know who?
They have no idea who bids. They can ask people, but anyone can go reach out to somebody and ask them to bid. It'll be on our website saying this is.
But they're not gonna know when it comes to a voting, who they're voting for, just the criteria that they're voting, right?
For which part? So in terms
The
of,
RFP.
for the RFP, before it goes out, it's just the criteria. Once it comes in and bids are read aloud, those bids are scored on that criteria. The criteria tells you how to score it. So there's no, when a bid is done correctly, there is an ambiguity, right? They either are or they aren't. They either meet the qualifications or they don't. Or if you say, we have 4 different levels of qualifications, each qualification level gets you so many points. You look and you see how many levels of qualifications they have that meet those points, and they get that many points.
So you know who's bidding, you should base the decision on the criteria.
All decision is based on the criteria, and we won't know who has submitted a bid until the bids are open, because they're all blind. We just know how many bids have been received. It's a process that anybody can follow the whole time. It's not a behind the scenes process if it's done correctly. So that's the RFP process. And again, we'll work with that. It'll be very public.
So let me get this straight, the RFP process, an RFP won't go out unless council blesses it,
Correct,
correct?
yes.
So all it takes is 3 votes to say, no, we don't want it.
Correct, if 3 votes say they don't want it, but those are public votes. And so, you know, if that's not what the majority of citizens want, then that's what elections are for. So, I can't control what council votes for. We will give them all the information and our recommendation, and then, answer any questions that council has. You know, and then they'll make the decision either at that meeting, or they can postpone it because they want to talk to citizens more before they vote, right? That's another option. But that's ultimately a council decision.
You could, though, send out the RFP prior to a council vote on the topics that you want that were the predominant to be covered.
We could send an RFP, we could send an RFI, which is a request for information. That does not that does not secure service. That just lets us know roughly what other entities think of the potential RFP.
Well, correct, but you could send an RFP, a request for the pricing, and that could be presented to council on it.
So,
Because that didn't cost you anything, it's not committing you.
no, financially we could do it, but the way that we do all of those things from a precedent standpoint is that council approves before any RFP goes out. So we would have to change, we'd have to let council know we want to change precedent. And I don't know that would be the way we would want to move forward with that. We don't want to do things without major things that could commit the city to certain public information being out there without council being okay with that. But, you know, if you disagree, that would be a good thing to tell council that, you think we should be able to submit RFPs, without their blessing.
I just think it'd be apropos to do the RFP and all the pricing, so that the public knows and sees, and then have the council say, no, we don't want this, or what. You know, I just think that might be a more open and transparent way to do it. But that's your call. I know that we have done, when I was on council, we have done RFPs, you know,
Without
the city did without, you know, and then it was presented to council, so.
That's not how I have been led to understand the current procedures, but we're more than welcome to consider those options. So, the only other thing I wanted to kind of go through is just a quick overview of what a forensic audit is, and then a small discussion about what types of things that are out there, what types of bad actions or concerning actions are out there. A forensic audit is a very specialized, very unique type of audit. It only looks for fraud. It does not care if something was recorded in the correct account. It only looks to see if there was fraudulent action. They require a scope, a very specific scope. You have to tell them, I want this fund from this date to this date, cash transactions. Or I want all accounts payable checks from this date to this date written out of this checking account, right? It's a very specific scope, right? That's part of what the majority of what this meeting is about, is taking all of your wants and desires of things and converting them into these actual specific scopes that can go out and can be, have a forensic audit conducted. Forensic audits, just so everybody's aware, do take longer than regular audits because they don't just look at a sample of stuff. They look at every single piece of paper, every single thing. And if there's something suspicious, if there's a missing piece of paper, they then track that down to as many levels as they can legally track it down, right? So that means if there is let me finish on, I'll get back. If there's a missing receipt for a credit card purchase, They will contact the person who made that credit card purchase. They will contact the entity where that credit card purchase was made to try and find and get a receipt. If there is any action that seems outside of standard, they will interview the people or the individual that did that, try and get an explanation for what happened, and then review to determine whether or not that makes sense based on other information that they have available. Checking driving logs if they're in a company vehicle, right? Verifying that they have the authority to make that kind of purchase, right? Somebody in Public Works who's on the road crew doesn't have the authority to go out and purchase accounting software, right? I know it's a silly example, but anything that is not within your realm of purchase. So that is what it looks for. It looks for all of those things and tracks everything down to the end. And then at the end, it gives you a report that says this many transactions were reviewed, this many there was accurate evidence for, and everything. There's no fraud detected, there's no mismanagement, there's none of those things. This many don't have backup. We can't validate whether or not they were done correctly, right? Whether they're fraud or not, they can't explicitly say. All they can say is, we can't validate whether these were good or not. And at the end, these were actual fraud. These were done in knowing error, right? And so that's what comes from a forensic audit. The other part of a forensic audit that I don't know that everybody's aware is forensic audits are very expensive. They cost significantly more than a normal audit does because they are so specialized and so detailed. So I just want everybody to be aware of that going in so that nobody is shocked at anything that comes back on pricing or time frame or any of those things. I can tell you a high-end auditor right now probably charges $300 an hour. Somebody that's at the level of qualifications to do an audit like this, maybe they would come in cheaper, but that would be the normal going rate. The other way forensic audits have been priced in the past is 20% of all dollars looked at. So if you're looking at $100 million, the forensic audit costs $20 million. When I say expensive, I do mean expensive.
You only look for fraud, you do not identify waste or abuse.
So if waste or abuse is found in the process, it can be noted, but that is not the function of the audit. It is specifically focused on fraud, things that meet the actual criminal and civil definition of fraud.
Also note for the public that forensic audits typically save money. So you might pay something up front, but it's going to catch the fraud and stuff, and it's going to cut it off. So forensic audits typically actually save you and make you money for future.
So they can. I don't know that it's accurate to say they typically do. All variations occur. Some of that depends on whether you can get money back, right, from somebody who's done a criminal fraudulent activity. And that's very difficult to say ahead of time whether or not that is something that can occur. But yes, they can, in the long run, be a value positive. But in all cases, they are an upfront heavy expense.
So you're saying in a forensic audit, they won't tell you how to improve or make changes. In a regular audit, when they have a finding on something, do y'all have to report back how you're going to correct the issue that they found? Because there were findings in this last audit.
Yes, so it's two separate questions, let me address them. So auditors of any type are not allowed to make specific recommendations. That is something that auditors are no longer allowed to do. That ended after the Enron collapse. So that's just an audit standard. You cannot make a specific recommendation. You have to make a
They just give you the
generalized.
finding.
They give you a finding and they can give you a generalized recommendation. An example would be, you should have policies and procedures. Right? Not your policies and procedures should say X, Y, and Z. Right? General versus specific. Auditors cannot give a specific recommendation. It has to be a very broad general thing. So they also, from a technical standpoint, they can't give a specific recommendation, because if they gave a specific recommendation, you followed that specific recommendation, and it did not solve the finding, then they theoretically would have liability. And that is something auditors don't typically do.
And this may not be the forum for this, but do you know in the past audit, or this past one that we had, and the findings that they had, have we done that as a city and corrected things or started a process?
Yes, it was noted at the end of the last council meeting, and we'll talk about it again at the beginning of the next council meeting. We have a tracking sheet up online, that at the moment is blank, but is being filled in with all the findings from this last year, and will be backfilled for prior years. And it includes, what the finding was, what the recommendation was, and then it doesn't have a space for what is the city's response, what is the city's timeline for implementation of that response, and where is the city in process of implementing that response.
So it's possible there's been past audits that this has not been done to rectify the problem.
There are numerous repeat findings in the most recent audit. I can't speak to what was or was not done by prior.
No, that's good.
There was
I'm curious because it seems like there's a huge umbrella for, well, we didn't know, or we found it, okay, now what? I guess, where do you come in as the director of finance to say, this is what I recommend y'all do, is that your job? Or do we come out of this audit and you're the guy to look at it as like, all right, what's next? I mean.
so it is,
I'm a fan of
Could
placing.
you repeat the questions, because we can't hear them?
Oh, sorry, for the record, I got you. I'm more so, I guess the question directly is what responsibility do you have to use the information that comes out of this audit in a constructive way? And are you the the one who I should point at whenever we're 10 years from now, won't make it at this rate, but 10 years from now, and we say, yeah, we've had multiple financial audits and they've had repeat findings. Should I be upset with Mr. Ferguson back in 2025? Or not upset with, I'm saying though, is he the one who I should have said, what'd you do with your findings in the audit? Obviously, there's a dais of council members and a mayor, but their title is not finance.
So the way the responses will work, at least in general, is I would craft a response. This is what I think we should do. This is the timetable I think we should implement it in. I would then take that to the city manager, my boss. We would discuss, come to an agreement. Yes, that's the way to go. Let's reconsider, come up with another alternative. Once we have done that, we would then bring that to council for informational purposes. If council wildly disagrees, then we would take that into advisement, but it's an administrative action, so it ultimately falls on the city. So what I would say in that instance is, yes, this position and the city manager are the two most responsible entities for those findings. Real quickly on that, just so I don't get crucified in a few months.
Well, I love what you said earlier about show up to elections. That's also the more important thing too.
The next audit that will come out is the audit for 24-25 fiscal year. I was only here the last few weeks of that fiscal year, and so I could not prevent the things that had already occurred.
Is it fair to say that she'll be responsible for what we can do to mitigate it?
Yes.
The things that happened in the last fiscal year?
You will see mitigation efforts before that audit even comes out. Some of them we've already reported about, but we'll definitely walk through those, and you'll be able to see those. The problem is all that already happened.
Yeah.
And so like I can't prevent them not doing reconciliations, them not doing AP journal entries correctly, them not having controls to review budget, all of those things that are findings. I can't prevent the things that happened.
Yes.
And so that audit is going to have repeat findings. It is going to have issues. I am working to try and fix as much as I can, but we're talking about fixing things after the fiscal year has already ended. There's a very strict limit on what I can do in that. Like I can't make us have a reconciliation until August in September, right? That's not physically in my power. I am not a magician. I don't have time travel powers. It'd be awesome if I did, because I could accomplish so much more. But yes, so the next audit, just so everybody is aware, is going to have findings, a lot of repeat findings, right? The pool of cash that everybody is concerned about, including me, That existed, it was impossible for me to unwind that year. Like, it's just not possible. I didn't have access to the bank accounts to do that at that time, so. There will be findings in that audit. You're more than welcome to say, hey, what have you done to address
Yeah.
these findings? Just so, I would
I don't want
appreciate
you to
not
have
being
to-
held responsible for the findings that I was unable.
I don't want you to feel defensive to my question, I really more so said it to, from here on out, I guess obviously I'm a bit younger, but, I don't necessarily believe in blame, but I love accountability, I love it. And so, you know, whether people like when I do it or not, I'm gonna point a finger if necessary, or if I feel necessary.
Sure, what I can tell you is, all of the things we are implementing, I am happy for you, to put all of that on me. Those are what my shoulders are here to do. Is to do those things.
I wanted to make a pun with your first name, but I'll hold up.
It's okay.
So my question was, a city manager has a limit, okay, they can write a check up to $50,000?
No.
Without permission of council?
25.
25.
25? I think in the past it was up to 50,000,
Mhm.
without council approval.
No, requires council approval.
That was at 50 grand before everything, and then they lowered it
And
to
we do,
45.
take anything that's gonna be, so there are some exceptions to that, so like contractual payments where the contract has been approved, but the payment is over that amount, like so our yearly software payments for some of our big software, right? Council's already approved those payments as part of the contract, so we don't have to go re-ask for permission to make those payments, right? So in those instances, so there can be checks that are written without council approving every single check if they've already approved it as part of another agreement or contract. Just
I just heard some sticky things about past managers. Nothing about this group, but past city managers who wrote checks up to $50,000 without council approval.
So I have not had enough time to delve into that to
Yeah,
provide any.
right. But I was just trying to clarify, so that is a practice.
Yes, anytime that there's an expense that needs to be paid that is above the allowable limit, that has not already been approved as part of another contract or agreement, that does need to go through council as a resolution before we write that check.
Got it.
There is one exception to that, and and it's not meant to sound shady, it's in an emergency, there is additional authority of the city manager to approve checks in an emergency. Right, because you can't always wait a week and a half to get a council meeting to write a check if an EMS vehicle blows up and we need to get it repaired and get it taken off the street, right? So there are, so it has to be an emergency, but in an emergency, there is additional authority to write checks. You do then bring those up at the next council meeting and say, this was an emergency, we wrote this check, and then council can say, we agree that that was a valid one, or we disagree, but that is the one exception to that rule.
I think y'all are gonna be surprised about some of the records.
Sure, we are working as hard as we can on the open records. It's not my department, but I know they are working very diligently.
In one of the meetings, there was, I think they said 65 to 67 irregularities or problems with the audit.
So the audit identified 60 correcting journal entries. Those correcting journal entries totaled $43 million and change. 60 correcting journal entries is a lot. A lot. Zero correcting journal entries, honestly might be a bad, like doing too good a job at the city level. Like you could probably cut some extra people at that point if you're at that level. Typically a good audit would have anywhere from 5 to 15, and for not significant dollar amount, right? And it would be specifically like, hey, this AP check really should have been in the prior year, or it really affects the current year, right? Small movement of things, not giant ones like we're in this last audit.
without us having access to it,
The audit is online, the whole thing.
do they point out the irregularities?
Yes,
If-
all,
Or
all
do we
the-
have to find it?
all the journal entries are in their own section. It's called the SAS 114. It is posted online. The whole audit is posted online. The SAS 114 is part of the audit, it's towards the back. That lists every adjusting journal entry.
You said SAS?
SAS 114.
In your opinion, that didn't raise a red flag for forensic file or forensic audit, or you have a chance to look at it. I don't know how much you've examined it, but if we know that, 43 million sounds like
It's
a lot of money.
It is an excessive amount of money. I think the better answer to that question is, everything makes me concerned. Every day there's something else I find that makes me concerned. Not all of my concerns, and my biggest concerns aren't explicitly fraud right now, and I'll explain why that is. The majority of the issues, and if you read the findings as well, they are in SAS 115 for those that are curious, at the back of the audit. All of the findings in the audit are about there were no controls, there was no review, there's no reconciliation, AP wasn't done right. None of that is fraud, all of that is,
Tell them what AP is, please.
oh, accounts payable, sorry, AP is accounts payable, that's us writing checks.
When you say none of that is fraud.
None of it was identified in the audit as
It's
fraud.
intentionally obscured on purpose, and that's very, very hard to prove.
Yes.
It really is.
So are you saying
But
accounting can
that
have
would be
policy?
fraud.
So, if the funds were intentionally, purposefully done wrong, that is a level of mismanagement that could cross the fraud line. That is extraordinarily difficult to prove. And I have not tried to go back and read every single email or try and listen to any phone calls about discussions that could attempt to prove that. I'm focusing on there were no controls, there was a lot of things that weren't done, how do I fix that?
And that's what we're here for. We want to know what happened and not have you spend your time there. We want someone else to go back and you to go forward as you should and implement what you feel is necessary.
Yes, and that's where my focus is now and forward. That's where my focus is right now. I have not spent hardly any time looking at
So in your opinion, do you need help with that, which is what we're asking for? And I don't know how to achieve it, whether you would hire someone in the city to help you, or we go outside. I think we all want an answer to that question, not expecting you to go back and look at every email, every check,
Yeah, right now, and I'm happy people disagree with me on this. Right now, my focus is entirely on, right now, saving the city and implementing things so that we can stabilize and then
Absolutely.
build going forward, right? In terms of whether or not it's good to go back and look back and figure out like exactly what happened, there is value in that. I don't feel like it's likely that we would be able to find a smoking gun. As Mr. Mish has pointed out, it's very difficult to prove purposeful, intentional actions of doing stupid things. Right, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Are you using stupid as a replacement for illegal?
No, I'm using it as a replacement for knowledge.
Oh, okay, I understand. So you're saying like lack of knowledge and, okay, I'm sorry, I understand.
Sorry, gentleman in the back, this way.
Yes, how many signatures do you need to sign one check?
So is that our policy or is that what we do? Because they're
Is that
different right
what you
now.
do? Because I hope it's not your.
So, right now, since Ms. Holly and I have come in, all checks require 2 signatures. There are currently 5 people with the approval to sign. They're the 5 people that council has, okay, it's the 2 chiefs, me, Ms. Holly, and Kiera, our city secretary. Right now, all the checks are going through and being signed by me and Ms. Holly. We're not letting anybody else in that.
So in the past, how many signatures did you
Yeah,
need?
how was it done in the past?
I
When
cannot,
we're in our
ans-
problem area.
I cannot answer that as a consistent thing. I have not gone back and looked at a bunch of,
The reason
So
why
it's
I asked,
loosey-goosey.
the reason why I asked is because if that's the problem, then you should know if it only needs one signature, two signatures, or three signatures.
so policy-wise, I believe the policy is a single signature if it's below 1,000.
Either one or three.
One or three. There's a small amount of money that one signature is allowable for. We are not in practice doing that. In practice, every check gets two
You
signatures.
mean currently?
Currently.
But in the past,
I-
were their policies broken?
I have not gone back and looked at enough checks to be able to adequately answer that question. So,
Yes, I think if you go back and one signature, you'll find a problem.
it's possible.
No, it's-
Again,
You'll find a problem.
when that is done, we will that's one thing that definitely will be looked at. So,
So, for his example, if we decide on paying upfront for a forensic audit, that would be part of the scope we might consider to review anything that had only one signature. But if I understand correctly, as far as deciding whether or not we need a forensic audit, which is what this and the next meeting are gonna be about, there's a difference between fraud, incompetence, loosey-goosey, and unrestrained. And there might be a whole lot of the last three, and not a whole lot that you could prove was fraud, and it cost us a fortune to identify, gee, we had a whole lot of incompetent, unsupervised, and loosey-goosey people spending money. And we have to decide what
Yes,
do we
that-
want for a scope if we're gonna have a forensic audit, and how much we wanna put in that scope is to determine how much it's gonna cost us as a city. As opposed to, do we wanna cut our losses and put our time and effort going forward into getting it right going forward, rather than trying to nail somebody to a wall in the past who might have moved to, be a Egypt for all I know. Is that right?
it's very close. So, the forensic audit will help identify, as referred to, the loosey-goosey or the lack of controls, or controls that weren't followed, right? There are policies for finance and accounting. It is unlikely that they were correctly followed, right? But that's true for a lot of things, right? If you're talking, so if the goal.
But that's why you have
Yeah.
audits, and that's why you have findings, and
Yes.
that's why you should go back and correct those, so you don't keep doing
Yes,
it.
that-
And
that is correct.
And the
That's-
marks.
that is why,
we haven't
we have-
done that. We haven't learned yet.
Yes, that's why we have the tracking up there, so everybody can see, how all that, is coming.
Yeah.
I will say, if the goal is to find and put somebody in jail, if that is the goal, to hold somebody responsible for putting them in jail, I don't think a forensic audit is going to solve that for two reasons. One, as Mr. Mitchell noted, it's difficult in a criminal level to prove fraud. Because from a criminal level, it actually, you have to purposefully and knowingly be doing something wrong, right? And it can't be a de minimis amount of money, a small amount of money, right?
What's a small amount of money?
It varies based on the specifics of the crime, but, and this is where I'm not as strong. I feel like, is it 5,000 maybe for it to go from misdemeanor where somebody might spend, a night in jail or get their hand slapped to a felony? I think it's around that number. I don't know off the top of my head. It might be 10,000, but it's somewhere in that range. And they go up from there, in levels of severity, but,
I was just gonna ask, you said the page is blank now, that they're working on getting the findings from the
yeah,
previous one
it's,
filled out?
so we just want, I finished developing it at 5:30 the day of the council meeting.
Yes, sir.
When we unveiled it, and I have not had the time to put the data
Okay.
into it.
My only point in saying that is I think it'd be easier to find scopes with that information.
Sure, so this is not the only one of these we're gonna do.
Yeah,
And
I'm aware.
if after the second one of these, we still, like, y'all as a group are like, hey, we wanna have more, we still wanna, to talk about it, absolutely. Like, this is not a, you get 2 shots and then I'm cutting everybody off.
In Texas, it's 2,500.
Is it 2,500? So yeah,
But if it's a public official, it boosts it up.
yeah. So that would be my only thing. If this is specifically about putting somebody in jail, that I think is a poor use of this, just because, again, it's very difficult to do that as an outcome. If it's about civilly suing somebody to try and get money back, you're more likely to win that civil suit. Whether or not you'd actually be able to get any money back, I don't know, but my guess would be minimal to none. Just because the people you'd be suing would likely not have, like, it's not like, it is very unlikely they're sitting on millions of dollars in their own personal account, right? And so it's not that there's not value in that, it's just as an actual value return, I don't know that the city would come out positive in a civil suit against somebody.
I think a lot of citizens, we just want our,
Just want answers?
Moving forward.
we just want the employees, the council, mayor, we just want those people to fiscally be responsible and know that this is our money. And to be
Can we have
responsible
people
in how
raise
you.
your hands
And
and then get
How
called
can they
on?
Google
I did.
fraud? They should.
I
No,
raised
we've
my
got
hand.
people back here
But I
that
did
have
raise-
not spoken yet.
I know, but I did raise my hand and you pointed at me.
Okay, well, I'll get,
Okay, thank you.
I'll get you, so we are actively trying to show that.
Thank you.
If you, look online, and I'm pointing at the screen like it's a computer, but, I need something to point at, so the screen's just my target right now. If you look online, we have posted all the journal entries for the whole fiscal year except for September, because we're still closing out the year. We have posted, all of the check register, and a whole bunch of other financial information. It is all out there, right? And what we are committing to is continuing that and also posting back. Once we have a little bit of time to catch up, we're actually gonna post prior year's information. My goal is, and I don't wanna put a timeline on it because I don't really have time, but as soon as we get more time, we wanna post back through 2020. Because that's the first signs that we have seen of things, moving. To be fair, we also haven't really looked further back than that, but yeah, so we wanna have all that, everything we can legally post that doesn't put us in a situation where we're gonna be sued, or what we post will get someone else sued, right? There are certain pieces of information that finance has we can't do for those reasons. But we'll put, like in the last council meeting, there was a summary document that was made available. It had totals of all of those things in it. We are extraordinarily committed to being transparent. It's part of the reason we're doing these meetings, so that everybody can ask their questions, talk, we can work through those things. And all of that's going online. If we can share it, it's going up there. Lady back was before you, Mr. Commissioner.
So my question is, since you've already basically done all these research, right, what are we benefiting from having a forensic audit?
I have not done any research in the
Not
past.
like that, but we basically done an audit already. What would we benefit from a forensic audit then?
So, we've had financial audits. Those are concerned, with making sure things are accounted for correctly, put in the correct, account, right?
Right.
This is a repair and maintenance for fire, right? That's what it is focused on, and that's its goal. It also does not look at every penny. It takes everything and says, okay, this is how much we have, this is how many transactions we have, and we are going to determine what we need to do to find a materially significant sample of that. And then they test that sample. They don't test every single transaction. So a forensic audit is different in that it takes that very limited scope, but looks at everything.
Right,
So-
but like, is it beneficial for us at this point to even pay for that?
It can provide additional information. It can
Yeah.
provide confirmation of things that people believe is happening or might know, and I just haven't had time to go back and look. It is, I will say, The chances that there was never any fraud in the history of the city seems extraordinarily unlikely to me. I don't know that there's any giant fraud, right? If you ask me, has somebody inaccurately used a fuel card? My answer would be almost certain,
Probably.
because that happens everywhere in the world. Fuel cards get misused on occasion. But is it worth paying the money to go and have a review of all of our
Worth paying all this money.
fuel card transactions if that costs us $10,000 and we find $1,000 of
I
misuse?
agree.
I can't assume how much those numbers are, but that's really something that is for y'all on the council to decide. I'm happy to provide recommendations, but I'd like to know what scopes are being talked about before I comment on specific scopes.
Okay.
So a routine audit, which we do every year, basically what it does, it just takes pools. We got 150 plus credit cards. And so what the auditor will do is he might take 5 samples. Say, give me credit card number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A forensic audit will go through and find, like, if say an employee bought their wife an $8,000 MacBook and gave it to their wife. Or if they perhaps had, 5 or more iPads or something in their home, or maybe they had 5 city cell phones in their house or something like that. That's the kind of stuff that the forensic audit would catch.
And what's the point?
There is value in knowing. There's value in knowing. I mean, there's always. So I mean, it's a cost-benefit analysis, right? How valuable is knowing? And then again, there are theoretical potential future actions, right? Civil suits in an unlikely possible, but not impossible, criminal suit. But that's something that the citizens and the council really need to decide on. Like, where's those lines, right? And which scopes meet the necessary criteria for the citizens to do that.
In private business, when we talk about knowing, I monitored 5 states of southwestern Bell for all fuel purchases for vehicles. That was just one of my responsibilities. That was under AT&T. We had thousands of vehicles. Those reports came out weekly. And then monthly they were summarized and sent up the line. Very easily to tag vehicles to see a vehicle only uses X amount of fuel. You got only X amount of distance and places to travel here. And we were looking at lots of miles. But we could tell based on the mileage input and based on the number of fuel, if it was even close, or was there a scam going on? And those persons would be fired. I mean, instantly. I mean, knowing, and if it's an action of council, then it's about exposure. Whether you can recover this money or not, it's about exposure so that an individual that creates this never should serve again. And let me give an example. Let's go back a couple of city managers. There was one where we had a kids fish. Great idea. It was a kids fish.
Kids fish.
At Highland Mile Park. The second year of it, it was funneled into this city manager's girlfriend, LLC, so that they could profit off of that. That was one of the things that got that individual fired. The other thing that will not turn up in your journal entries individually on every purchase was 15,000 plus to that one individual on Amazon accounts. What does that have? But there were other department heads that left the city during that time that had large Amazon account purchases. And those are the things we look for. Can we get that money back? No. But he did get fired, and there's others to be held accountable.
Yes, and then so again, knowing isn't that it has no value. Knowing has a lot of value. It's just intrinsic value, right? Not to monetary value, like actual cash that would come back. But I can tell you, if we find somebody as we're doing our all the new controls we're putting in. If you mess up and you are actively doing something wrong and you know it, we don't have any intention of keeping those people. We're not here to protect. Anyway, Ms. Holly and I are both new. We don't have any connection with any employee here, so it's really easy for us to make those decisions.
What I also wanted to say is journal entries won't pick up everything.
Correct, that's why there's other parts of it.
Let's give an example. If you've got grant money or something and you charge off expenditures for whatever reason on that, it doesn't necessarily show up in a journal entry that can be easily identified.
True, so the way a forensic audit deals with that is grant journal entries are typically summations of a large group of things, but they have backup. They have an actual draw request, an actual set of invoices that total up. And those audits go to that level and review each line of that. That's how that is worked through. I do, before we get too much further down, and this is very good, and I'm very glad that we're having this kind of conversation, but I just don't want to have time for everybody to come up and talk one-on-one. So I'm gonna do a couple more questions and then we're gonna do the one-on-ones.
I was gonna say, from the conversations that have been going on here, I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, I'm not qualified to make a decision on what needs to be the scope, or how far you need to go back, or what needs to be looked at, because I have very limited knowledge of accounting. That's your medical record code, I got people. But as a result, I would say that until we have more detail of the last 1 or 2 years audits like you're going to have put online, I don't think as a group we can come up with anything vaguely resembling what we recommend as a scope, or even if we need to do a forensic audit, because we might have what we need to know from the basic review of the audit, as in a third-party auditor comes in and reviews the current city audit and has a second opinion. That might be more appropriate to what we really need than going to the expense of a forensic
So
audit.
I will say,
unless
some
we know
people,
more specific.
some people have been doing a lot of research for a long time and, either have discovered things, or feel like they have certain areas where they have questions. And so they might have something that works closer to a scope. But it's important to talk about scopes, figure out what scopes might exist. The RFP doesn't have to happen at the November 8th or November 10th council meeting, right? We can continue to work on it until everybody feels it's ready. You don't have to rush to get that out. It's more important it's what is needed and what is valuable than it is that it's done immediately. At least that would be my take. It's more important to have it be right than have it, be rushed. Last question.
Two things. Are you gonna make a recommendation on the limited knowledge you have, which is probably more than any of us, of what possibly could be a forensic audit? And the second part is, I think you work for the state in the audit.
Yes.
Does that cost the city that you did the audit for money, or do they come in, and are you willing as a city to cooperate with the state and just say, hey, come look at these, if it's that simple?
So I'm gonna answer the second one first.
Okay.
Yes, I did work for the state auditor's office for many years. I still know a lot of people that work there. The state auditor's office, in their main section, does not do forensic audits. They have a specialized group that comes in and does forensic audits. That group is actually also law enforcement certification, so they will do the forensic audit and then come and rescue.
If it's there.
If it's there, if it is there. And I worked with that group when I was there. I worked with them. I was not one of the law enforcement officers. The way the state auditors work, just a very, very quick history lesson on it, is they are prescribed a set of audits that they have to be done every year by the state legislature of Texas. Those audits fill up 80 to 85% of their work they do for the whole year. The single audit itself takes more than a whole year to do. So there's a team working on next year's while the current team is working on this year's. They do audits of non-prescribed things. Those audits, 99.9% of the time only happen if a legislator asks them to do that audit, and upon review, the state auditor's office feels that there's that they are gonna be able to provide value either to the state or to that entity by doing the review.
Would you commit to giving them the information if you
They
have?
they are by law required to receive a copy of every audit we have. So they already have all of our audits.
Doesn't mean they looked at it.
But
It does not mean, well,
they won't have the anomalies that you know of, and as we just talked about.
yes, they won't have the level of detail, but they will have the actual audit. I would be hesitant for me to request an audit from the state auditor, just because I wouldn't want anybody to feel like that I'm getting special treatment or that I'm limiting anything on their end. I feel like that would need to come from council or citizens, from a transparency situation. I'd rather not use that connection for that.
Well, I think that would be a benefit to us, or not, to the citizens of Marque, to use your expertise and your experience.
If the council asked me as a council to reach out, I would reach out. But I would want, I wouldn't want to just do that.
Understand.
So, and I can't guarantee, just because I happen to have worked with the state auditor, I can't guarantee that anything
Right, would do it
happen.
just for you.
I know her, but not in, we're not close friends. She gave me a call back, but not,
Right, no, I understand.
we don't go golfing or anything, so. The second thing is the state auditor's office always creates a cost estimate for an audit. Sometimes they charge, sometimes they don't. In most cases, they charge. Now, they charge reduced rates to what the quality of their auditors would cost out in the open world, but it is still not cheap. I don't know what their perfect rates are right now, but I know they used to be entry-level auditors were between $75 and $100 an hour, and it went up as you got higher level people working on it. I assume those rates have gone up. So cheaper than what it would be to go out, probably and find another auditor. With that being said, it's almost 7 o'clock. I do want to make sure that we have time to do the one-on-ones. If you still have more questions, there's another session before the council meeting on Monday. You're welcome to come to that, and I can continue to answer questions. But I do want to get to the one-on-one piece of this. And so the way this is going to work is, if you want to talk, you've signed in at the back. You have a number. I'm going to call that number, and you're going to come up and sit at the table with me. We're going to sit down together, and we're going to have a one-on-one conversation. There will be mics present so that people can hear the conversation, but it is just going to be between the individuals at the table. Again, I would ask that people not interrupt and just let that conversation play out. If you would like to talk in private, you don't feel comfortable talking in front of everybody, we can go back to the executive chamber rooms and have a private conversation for a short period, going through that. I want these conversations to be specifically about defining scopes, right? Talk to me about what it is that you want looked at, whether you know something or whether you think there's something there, or whether you're just like, man, the name of that company is really fishy and I don't trust them, I want to look at it, right? I don't care what your reason can be, whatever it is for you, but we're going to talk through it and we're going to work to define an actual true scope. And we're going to work together to do that in one-on-one. I'm going to write that scope down, and then it will get posted on there's a tracking sheet as well for the forensic audit site. Every time we officially define a scope, I'll write it down, and then this week those scopes will get posted on that tracking sheet, and it'll happen again at the next meeting. There's also a section on that called priority. We're not gonna discuss priority on the one-on-one tonight. We're gonna try and just get as many scopes in as we can. Once I have enough scopes, I will go in and make a recommendation on priority, and then we will have a conversation about why my recommendations for which things are priority. Once all of that is done, I will make a recommendation on, these are scopes that I think there could be some value in doing for an RFP. These are ones that I think there might be something there, but it's a very low value. Or these are ones that I think would be a waste of time to do, either because they would cost such an astronomical amount of money, or because the likelihood of finding something is extraordinarily low. But it will all be explained. It's not just me, randomly saying something. Again, everybody's gonna be involved in the process the whole way. But with that being said, I appreciate all the questions. I hope everybody appreciated the open dialogue and all of that. Like we said, we're gonna start with number 1.
Board line.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so you kind of touched a little bit over the discussion we had.
We can't hear you.
Concerning credit cards.
Sorry.
So when it comes to credit cards.
Yeah, credit cards.
You need to speak up, Laura, it's still.
Okay. So my number 1 is credit cards,
Okay.
and I would look at the last couple of years
Okay.
and specific, trips that have been made. Are there receipts? Do y'all require receipts when they come back from trips?
So
Do y'all
there-
look at those?
There should be receipts. This is where me not being here a long time, I don't know exactly how everything was done in the past. You should provide receipts.
Is that part of the policy?
I would have to go check and see if they have to provide. I know that per diem is sometimes used. If you use per diem, you don't always have to provide all of your meal receipts. You can use the per diem amount. I'm not personally a fan of per diem, but I know that is something that is in
When you use per diem, where I worked.
statutory rate.
I worked at College in the Mainland. When we went on a trip, you had a per diem. But we had to provide ahead of time, we were going to a conference, the conference agenda. And if the agenda had a dinner, then you weren't paid, your per diem was less.
That is
Did not
correct.
include.
That is the way the policy would work.
Okay, so you're saying you don't know if the city has that?
My understanding is that is how the city currently.
Okay, so I would look at business trips
Okay.
for everybody. And I would expect the policy covers whether you're an employee or city council member. It doesn't matter,
Yes, the travel policy should be
the same
the same.
for everybody. Okay, so I would look at the trips.
Okay, so in that case, that's less about credit cards and that's more about travel.
Okay,
So,
let's call it travel then.
yeah, so what you're looking for is travel, last 2 years,
Mhm.
and do you want that to include travel to Houston, or do you want it only to be
Anywhere.
outside all locations?
Anywhere. Because if it's Houston, I'm just speaking from my experience in a business, working at a state entity, that if it was in Houston, we were not allowed to stay overnight.
That's correct, that's considered a
We
day
were
trip.
going back and
Yeah.
forth.
And you are required to come back and forth.
Right.
Yes, if it's in a reasonable drivable distance, of which Houston would qualify.
Okay, so I would look at that, because if that's happening, that's an issue, that's, I would include that in the scope.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter where you travel, in-state, out-of-state, I would look at that for the last 2 years.
That's, all right, we can definitely do that. Is there any specific, more detailed areas of focus, or just everything around travel? So
Well, so when they travel, are they given a credit card? I mean, everything
It
should be
depends.
already. Okay,
So, my understanding, and again, I have not fully read the policy on this, so this is me,
Okay.
going by what, as I understand the policy to be,
Okay.
is,
I'm sorry, it's cold.
I'm sorry, you have to get approval before you travel.
And that
Department head.
And the approval is a signature from your supervisor?
It should be from your supervisor, and if it's over a certain amount of money or time, it should also include either the city manager or a designee
Okay.
of the city manager.
Okay.
At different times, that would be a different person. Whoever the city manager has said, yes, they can
Okay.
approve at this level.
Okay.
So pre-approval of the trip, they should not need a credit card with them for registration. That should be able to be purchased by the city upfront.
And I would think that there is a limited number of credit cards?
So, there are, in the past, and I don't know what percentage of employees, but there were a lot of credit cards.
That's a red flag.
That were out there. We have pulled back 98% of them, I think. Fire has one that they are keeping only so that if a tire blows on the weekend or something like that, they can actually go and keep an ambulance or an EMT on the road. That's the only reason they currently have one. And I get notified of that.
Okay.
But we pulled back all the ones that aren't required for somebody to have something for an emergency.
Okay.
And the new process is you come in, if you need a credit card, you come in, you sign it, you sign it out, you let us know what you're using it for, what the anticipated cost is, and then you sign it back in with the receipt for what your purchase is. That is the current process.
That's something new.
It is,
With you and
Yes, it
Ms.
is.
Holly, this is new.
this is how it is done. Right.
So that's why I'm saying the last 2 years.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
definitely do that. So we'll look at all travel. We'll look at both approval. We'll look and see if there were any post-travel audits or documentation done. We'll look and make sure that there weren't extra nights purchased. That food wasn't manipulated. Per diem was always at standard rate. Mileage was always at standard rate. Those kind of things.
Okay.
That's what would be included in that scope.
The other thing when I traveled for the college is, if we went out to eat, we could not charge like alcohol.
That is correct. That is against state law.
Okay.
So now, what I will say is, in a per diem situation,
Yeah.
where you're just given a per diem, we don't have, unless a receipt is brought back,
Right.
we won't have
But they're
an,
not required to bring a receipt back.
in a per diem, they're not required to receive, which is part of the reason I don't like per diem. One, it's, the city ends up paying more,
Right.
because a lot of times people take the whole per diem and only eat one meal and go
Right.
out and get McDonald's, and then they
Yeah.
make money off the city travel.
Right, they don't have to turn that money
Right.
in that they didn't spend.
Yes, so my preference from a fiscal curmudgeon standpoint is we pay what you spend up to per diem. You're free to spend whatever, we will reimburse for whatever is actually spent up to per diem.
But they have to provide.
But they would have to
receipts.
provide receipts. That is not the current policy, but that is a policy that I will eventually propose
Okay,
we go to.
okay.
So that's the first one?
That's the first one.
Yep.
The other one I had was on the manual entries.
Okay, so for journal entries?
Yes.
So, the way that works now, is, and I can talk to some extent how it worked in the past as well. So, our accounting system, will create an automatic journal entry if it goes through the AP process, if it goes through the utility billing process, if it goes through the cash receipts process where people come in and pay at the front window, right? All of those will, when they enter that they received the cash, the system itself will create an automatic journal
So
entry.
you're talking about the new finance software?
The old finance software would also do this.
It would.
Not as clean or as well, like there's a lot of new functions
Okay.
in the new software, but the old software would create these journal entries.
Okay.
Those journal entries are not posted. They still have to be reviewed and posted by an individual. That should be the finance director, or if for some reason there was an assistant finance director or something, maybe they could do it, but that should be at a high level that is reviewing and posting on journal entries. In the new system, all journal entries are reviewed and posted by me. No journal entry can happen in the system if I don't approve it. For manual journal entries,
Right.
so two different types of creations. There's the automatic ones where we receive $30, a journal entry is created based on information that the system has set up in the back that auto-populates. No human is sort of like typing in that piece. Manual journal entries, the most common ones of these are things like monthly and closing entries, so interest earned each month, any transfers we make between bank accounts, those types of things, right? Actual accounting functions. Those have to be manually entered. And so in those instances, we do have, and this is true even back before me,
Yes.
there is an employee or multiple that actually will receive some sort of backup documentation. We'll take that backup documentation and we'll actually enter the journal entry based on that documentation. So let's use a transfer of funds as an example, right? We have funds in our investment account. We need those funds to pay a bill. We transfer them from our investment account to our checking account, right? That requires a journal entry to document that occurred, right? That journal entry would reduce our investments and increase our consolidated cash. Those are accounting terms but that still has to be a journal entry that's entered. And it's actually slightly more complicated than that because we use consolidated cash, but I don't want to go into all the extra pieces. But so someone physically goes in and enters that, but they have a backup that they're using to determine what needs to be entered. Right? That backup then is uploaded with the journal entry as backup documentation, or should be. That way, anytime anybody goes to review that entry, or any audit asks about that entry, that backup can be easily gotten and attached to it. That manual journal entry also still has to be reviewed by another individual and posted.
So you're saying you don't see the importance of looking at that as a scope?
So for a forensic audit, I don't know that there's a huge value in that. A lot of that is what is looked at in the financial audit.
Okay. So since it was in the findings,
Yes.
in the 23-24, are you personally looking at those since it was a finding?
We will go back and look at, most of the findings were explicitly related to the controls that allowed for those things to be bad.
And that no longer,
We are working
With the new
to
one.
get rid of all of those. We have a lot in place now. We still don't have everything in place. We're still short-staffed. And so I don't have anybody to do reconciliations. And my wife has told me that I cannot work 100 hours a week.
okay,
And so, I can't go in and do all of the reconciliations as well. But those I think would be better for the financial audit to do and for us to show you. So once we do a reconciliation, I can take a summary of it
okay,
and make that public.
okay.
So everybody can see.
Yeah, because that's a red flag, so that's not.
It's just not
It's not
fraud,
scopable.
it's not a fraud
Okay,
specific.
it's just a process.
It's a process issue,
Yeah,
yes.
it's a big process. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's one else.
Okay, thank you for your time.
All right.
Number 2?
Mr. Ferguson?
How are you, sir?
One of my requests would be a forensic audit, and actually, it could be done without a forensic audit. But I would like to see everything revealed for the past 4 years. It could go 5, but let's just say 4 years, on every single credit card that this city has ever issued through any financial institution, because there could be multiple.
Sure.
And to see what was charged on those cards not redact the entire number, leave the last 4 digits, there's nothing wrong with doing that. The credit card companies or whoever issued that has all those statements all the way back to the beginning of time on these things. And they're itemized statements, and it will show everything that has been purchased, whether it's a fuel card that's also purchased lunches on it, or things like that. Those are policies that you can change now, yes. But there are others where there were personal expenses beyond just food purchases, shopping, all kinds. We have proved that already with a couple of open records requests on some people. And one of them sits right there. When you can purchase things on a city credit card at a Macy's or Lord & Taylor's, you know, there is no reason for that. I want to see everything, because credit cards have been rotated. And there's too much, let's not call it fraud, let's just say graft, you know, however you want to say it. And it's wrong. It's unethical at the very least. And to me, something unethical leads to something else. But the credit card review, and you could hire a clerk to do that, under $25,000 and can do it. It doesn't take that much.
Sure. I will say, in relation to that, we are actively working on publishing all credit cards transactions for the year. That's something that we were hoping to have ready by the 27th meeting. We didn't have it ready by the last meeting, but that is something that we have already been working towards. We just need to make sure that there's nothing that doesn't need to be redacted on the actual statement that comes.
At AT&T, the way we did it, when we started clamping down on things, we published all that. And we published the person's name that the credit card was assigned to, so that they got public recognition of what they spent. Whether it was $200 at a liquor store, and you would be surprised at what was being bought.
I probably wouldn't.
It stopped quickly.
Yes.
And then from then on, it was a terminal offense if you committed it.
Yes, so again, we are already actively working on that. I am getting all the statements for this last year, working on those, and reviewing them to make sure there's not to erase any transactions, but just to make sure that when we publish the statements online in our transparency area, when we're publishing everything else, that there's nothing that we can't have up there.
I'd like it to go back for more than a year, and
I'm just doing the first year right now, but yes, when I said earlier that we were trying to go back all the way to 2020, that would include credit cards. That would be one of the things that would work. I just need to, again, before I put something online, I just need to make sure that it's not about the individual transaction, it's about like the other information on top of the statements or any of that kind of, there's nothing out there that is gonna get us in trouble by publishing. And
If
so,
an individual spent city tax dollar money on a credit card, there is nothing that can get you or anyone else in trouble except the individual who did it by publishing that. That's a fact. You can't get in trouble for just putting it out there. You can if you're gonna make an allegation against it, but you're not gonna make an allegation.
no, so we are, part of what we're trying to do, and it started, with the last meeting when we released all that data. Some people have been able to go out and find it, but it's on the financial transparency website. We are publishing everything we can. We're starting with last year, because that's the most convenient time period, and it lets us create a model of what we want it to look like. Eventually, we want to actually take it from kind of the muddled state it's in right now and actually create basically boxes. So every year we'll get its own box. You click on that box, it'll open up, and then you get to pick what type of information you want, whether it's credit cards, budget reports, trial balances, journal entries, cash statements, all those things. You'll click on that box, and then it'll show you the whole year's version of all of those things. And then each year will get its own box with its own drop-down set. We just wanna get this year out, get it figured out, get it set up how we want it, and then we can start working back to future years. But, all of the credit card detail is something we are working on actively publishing.
Another thing for a financial audit or a forensic audit would be our permits and construction records.
Okay. Is there any specific type of permits? Are you talking land use, electrical?
All construction permits. for
Commercial, residential.
Everything that exists in a mega bay. As of 2 years ago, not even, about a year and a half, Ms. Van Staveren was still employed. We're gone. We had an open town hall meeting. All those records were gone. FEMA representative told us at that meeting that he had been working with the city. Now, this is under the city manager prior to Mr. Pritchard. That he had been trying to get the city to give them some records and working for over 2 years and couldn't do it. At that town hall meeting, Ms. Van Staveren stated publicly that all of the records were gone. When asked why, she said, "I cannot tell you that." So where they all went and what was driving this was FEMA wanted pictures of everybody's home from different angles to prove that there were not living quarters on the ground floor. And then they came back with another deal when that failed. But it exposed something that all the records were gone. That is an audit. There's no excuse for that. They didn't have any residency, whether you get occupancy permit, your construction permits. I built my own house in 2009 and 2010. I have all my permits that was required. I was the GC for it. But yet the city has nothing. They don't even have the copies of the plans. At least that's what was said. When these things happen, and this wasn't just to me, this was an entire neighborhood, that raises some concerns.
So I was unaware of that. That definitely is concerning. I don't know what I don't think a forensic audit is like to start there. I think there the first question is me and Ms. Holly need to go and talk to permits and try to let them have them explain to us in a situation where we are asking the questions and holding the feet to the fire and get an actual story that we can then take the next steps on. And depending on where those steps lead and the information we find, if there is information available, that's where a forensic audit might come in handy. If there's not, then that's a different type of thing. Then we need to figure out not only what happened, how we can resolve it, whether that is going and working with developers to get copies of those plans to collect the city's copies, something, right? That becomes a very different type of thing. And if it was, if we find out something that is untoward is what happened, right? When we're talking with the permitting staff, that is the kind of thing we would bring forward so that either council could know how we addressed it, like you got rid of this person, or doing this to rectify this, or this is what we have found. This is our recommendation, right? The people involved are gone, and there's an email that shows that this was an order from somebody, that person's gone, right? And I'm just speculating at this point, right, in terms of what actually happened. Then that's the point where we're what else would you like us to do?
There's another one on purchasing.
Okay.
This comes into the auditing process. are we following the recommended guidelines? And I can almost assure you we have not. Do we always? Maybe some. But we'll go back to, let's say, 20 or 21, there was a purchase of a gray dog. And we're going to start with that one. The open records request that I received on that requested all of the invoices and receipts for that purchase. There was a $10 million CO issued in order to buy this equipment. It was more than just the gray doll that was purchased.
I would hope so.
We had two gray dolls, a working one and one that was broken. That could have been fixed. And our gray doll only sees work for about 6 or 7 times a year. So it doesn't make sense to actually purchase one. The records I received what was supposedly an invoice from the seller, and it was on city letterhead. It was not from the seller.
The seller cannot use
No,
legally city.
it didn't make sense at all. It did not. And it didn't define, and when I contacted that vendor, the manufacturer, they did not have a purchase order directly to Lamar. That means it came through a third party, and that's what we were driving at, trying to get. We suspect who it is, but we were trying to prove it. But the records that we were given were manipulated. That is fraud. But our purchasing has not always been above board. That is something to be looked at.
Sure, so that would be something that we could do a forensic audit on. Typically, you would not want to do it on all purchasing. You would want to, like, purchasing related to COs or purchasing related to costs over a certain dollar amount, right? That way you weed out, like, going and buying pencils at Staples, right? Unless you also want to look at buying pencils at Staples, which is perfectly fine to look at. Just from a cost value standpoint, typically you would want to tighten that up a little.
And your financial audit would not be limited to just credit cards. It would also be expanded to other credit accounts, you know,
Okay.
and that would be like an Amazon or a similar business or entity that.
Sure, that we have cost.
And it doesn't actually hit a credit card. You know, the bill will come to the city, but that needs to be investigated also.
Okay. So that would be our buying arrangements at institutions. So like we have one at Lowe's, we have one at several
Yes.
entities where we need to go buy, nuts and bolts to fix something.
Who bought it, where it went, what it was for, exactly. The other things will not be falling under forensic audit, that comes in the bidding process.
Okay.
And that's a policy change. And I have made statements to that in the past. But those are what I would start with.
Yeah.
Is all of those credit card purchases in any other financial institutions. And then you can start with that gray doll purchase that was made back then. The very first one was back when
2021.
this administration took over. That's what I've got. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Robert, and the scrapple one.
Number 3?
I skipped the number 4.
Okay, thanks, sir. And I know we're scheduled to end at 7:30, but I'm here to help citizens in every way I can, so I'm gonna keep going as long as y'all are interested.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well, how are you?
Good, good. See,
You too?
I'm a little bit more organized. I think, when people are talking about fraud, well, specifically to what I have prepared for you, let's look into the misapplication of public funds.
Sure.
Nick, can you move that microphone closer to you, sir?
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I can sit here. Well, specifically to give you a scope, let's talk about restricted funds.
Sure.
Impact fees, hot taxes, and, you know, tier zone. I don't know if you're aware, if you guys are aware just yet, that, it's been marked expired, Omega Bay.
I was unaware that Tiers is separated into its own account.
Sure.
But I was unaware that it was,
Just happened, apparently. Last week is when I saw it, so, a month ago, it wasn't, now it's expired, I don't know who marked that, but,
I don't know, that's something we'll look into.
Expired?
Yes, ma'am. There's actually, some exhibits in there that you can check out, but you can look it up on this portal as well.
Yeah, we did not send anything saying it was an Indian, or I literally
It's just supporting.
just met with them, yeah.
So yeah, specifically on the impact fees and the hot taxes, you know, the commingling stuff, one pot, that's where that starts, but you know, there's some transfers in it, or transfers out of impact fees, going into utility funds, and who knows where, so, you know, if we need a forensic audit, we need to look at those restricted funds.
Yeah, so, on the restricted funds, one complication with them, and this is not me trying to weasel out, this is just trying to explain, unfortunately, when you have a pooled cash account, the dollars in that cash account, the actual cash dollars, aren't labeled which fund they are. They're just dollars.
Right.
Right? So, an entity who is being accused of inappropriately using those funds, and I'm not making this argument, just
Sure.
providing a devil's advocate approach.
Yeah.
Not even it happened. They could argue that the remaining dollars are actually the impact funds and the hot tax, and then all the other funds are what's gone.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So from a like fraud standpoint, that's a very complicated one to do because that cash can be labeled as anything because it has no specific attachment to each individual dollar in the bank account. Now, I'm not saying that things were not done incorrectly.
So impact fees specifically
Yes.
go into this one account, which just looks like dollars. So are you aware about the segregation of those impact fees on interest-bearing accounts?
Yes, so there's a lot of different accounts that are required to be
Right.
separated out. I don't know why they weren't. It was a multi-year audit fund.
Not your fault.
And we are working
Right.
to separate those out. We've been very clear about separating out. The one thing that makes it more difficult to separate them out right now is you have to have cash to put into a new account to separate it out.
Right.
And our cash situation is very limited, so I don't want to be making accounts that then me keeping the minimum balance in those accounts ends up costing me an issue down the road.
Right.
So I'm being very intentional about what accounts I make and when we pull that out. But it is something we committed to, it's something that's going to happen. I just don't want that to be the cause of a future issue. But yes, separation of accounts is a very common federal and state requirement. It's not just hot funds and impact funds, but
Right.
many.
I'm just trying to narrow down the scope for you.
Yeah, many funds that were not adequately done. I do think the correct beginning part of that is not a forensic audit, and it's not that we can't do one audit, but I think the first part of that needs to be an actual cash position determination, delineation review.
Right.
Right, that way we can determine how much actually should be in each account, what they should have in them, right? One thing that we have been very upfront about is that we can't trust all the information in the accounting system.
Right.
We've said that, I believe, at every meeting, and is evidenced by the fact that the last audit was, a mess and required all those adjusting journal entries. So I can't look at the accounting system and say, this is how much hop we should have. I can make a guess, even an educated guess, but I can't say, this is how much should be in hot, this is how much should be in impact. right? We need to do a review to make those determinations before we take the step of a forensic audit, would be my recommendation on that. And that's true for all the funds. Like,
Sure.
we need to figure out what should be in everything. And so that would my, instead of a forensic audit to begin, my recommendation on that would be to actually do that review and figure out what should be in each of those accounts. And then we can actually solidify that amount, put into so this is also where it gets complicated. We can't create an interfund loan agreement, so as a repayment mechanism for the general fund to repay those funds, because it's legally not allowed.
Right.
As you noted, like, we can't legally loan that money in between, so we can't create an interfund loan agreement to repay them.
That's what I, getting to where to go.
Yeah.
What does it spend on restricted cash being used on, what it can't be used on? So that's where I wanted to.
That definitely happened. Why it happened, I have no idea why the pooled account was created. That goes back many years.
Right, right. I get it, it's a lot to look at.
But on that, the thing we need to do, and is in plans to do, is do a review and figure out what each fund should have its balance be. And then from there, we can start actually, making it, in terms of like, what did they do and why did they do it? We can look into that, but we'd be relying, like, we don't have, subpoena authority, right? We can't bring anybody in to ask them under oath questions.
Right, right.
So we'd be limited to emails and that kind of thing.
That's a good one.
Well, we certainly look through
Same
emails,
girl. Yeah.
and there's probably some stuff in there, but it's probably, I don't wanna say for certain, but the likelihood that there's a smoking gun, that somebody wrote an email that said, hey, let's waste all these hot funds to screw the citizens.
Well, I'm not saying that.
Is
I'm
unlikely.
not getting there, I'm just saying. It happened. Right, it sounds.
Yeah, it definitely did happen. Again, this goes to
On what?
the holding people accountable.
Right.
That is a very difficult, that's where the difficulty comes in, like,
Not point of view.
how do we hold somebody accountable for those things? And then I always, my personal adage is never, explained with, difficulty or fraud, what can be explained through stupidity. Typically, that's kind of, I just assume stupidity until I see evidence otherwise. Ignorance,
Right.
yeah, so that's just the word I like to use, but yes.
That's a strong word. For some. So yeah, just those three things, just backing up, don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're good.
I thought I'd just prepare for you because, we have a limited amount of time, I appreciate your time.
No, I will definitely, I will, pour through this, and, if you are open, I will, make notes and we can either convene again at the Monday meeting or, after that. It's gonna take me a minute to get through.
Sure, I mean, most of it's just, supported documents, but, I think, the gist of it is maybe 17 pages.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Other than that, yeah, no, I think people need to know where that money went, what it was spent on, because it just disappears once it goes to consolidated, so.
Yeah, the actual, it's difficult to track the cash. What, we have said is, it was spent. We don't see any evidence of like somebody trying to do any sort of enormous investment.
Right.
Right? Again, I'm not speaking to did somebody try and embezzle
Not saying
some
that.
colored pencils or something? Who knows? But I don't see like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of any sort of nefarious actions. I see a lot of things where, hey, you know what we would like? This. Okay, let's buy it. Wasn't in the budget. Was it needed? Who cares? There's money in the bank. And that is, I think, the answer to most of the questions of where did the money go.
Okay. That's a good one, that's a good answer. It's a truthful, it's an honest answer.
It's the honest answer. Based on our review, and again, we weren't here, so we can't say this for certain, but it does appear that the budgets were created and then functionally illegal. Like, on all sides, and like revenue side, expense side, it's just, yeah, would you like that? That sounds great, let's do that. hey, do you wanna add another position? Sure, let's
There's
do
money
that.
there.
And so, that is from what we have seen, that is the vast majority of what is happening, is just no control, hey, there's money in the bank, not realizing that money is reserved for a whole lot of other things, right? And just say, hey, there's money in the bank, let's spend it. Now, those purchases weren't inherently illegal, they were all legal purchases. They weren't approved through the budget, which is a different thing. Again, that's one of those differences between fiscal ethics and responsibility and actual criminal activity, right?
Well, I'm just gonna backtrack to the restricted funds and using those. You know, I know the whole majority is put in one pot, but I'm talking about the restricted funds being commingled, and then where did they go? So, yeah, we know stuff was spent, but, you know where I'm going.
Yes, so what I can tell
I'm
you.
not being general here, I'm going specifically to that.
Sure, so what I can tell you based on what we have seen, and again, I've been here a little over a month.
Sure. No,
Right,
I get it.
so, by no means have to look at everything, and most of our time has been spent on what's happening right now. It appears, in most cases, and all the big things that we have seen, that they just treated those restricted funds as if they were general fund. Like they just didn't, in their head or when they were making purchases, care to differentiate. It does not appear that there was a nefarious spend of those funds. Now, is it actually correct to do that? No. Is that a civil violation and could somebody be civilly charged? Potentially. That gets complicated, like we talked about at the beginning. You can say that all the remaining money is actually high in impact and that general fund is negative. There's some magical accounting that can be done to try and save people from charges. I don't think you could get a criminal charge on that. It's certainly possible there could be a civil thing, but again, there would be no restitution associated with that, would be my guess. But we're happy to admit that things were done wrong.
Sure.
And I believe we've admitted that.
Your books are,
They're out there.
transparent to me.
But we did publish
It's there.
everything, so we're not,
Right.
again, we are, and more is coming, right? It takes me a while to work through to make sure I can put something out without putting us as the city in legal jeopardy or an entity we have business with in legal jeopardy. So one example is we can't publish our outstanding checklist to the public because we can't have people calling businesses that have not cashed our checks, bugging them and doing that creates
Right.
liability.
I get it.
Right? So there's certain things we can't actually publish the detail of. But in those cases, we publish the aggregate information for that. But the things that we can publish the detail, we're putting it out there. And we're working through everything in 25 to try and get everything out there so that anybody that has any questions, it's there. And specific questions, we're happy to answer the best we can. Again, I don't disagree that there was mismanagement of funds. I feel like we have said that. And some of it, again, potentially, certainly could be civilly liable for their actions. But there's a cost benefit of that as well. And I'm not saying anybody specific, I'm just saying in general, it could be. So that's also a very complicated case to take. But definitely on what the fund should be, the first step of that, and one of the things that is high on our priority list is to get everything reconciled out so we actually know what all the numbers should be. That is a code number one on my list. Unfortunately, there are 12 code number ones, but it is a code number one. And we are actively working for it. We have an open position right now whose primary function is reconciliations, and we would love to be able to bring someone in that's good. If we can't get a person in there soon enough, we will likely bring to council for an RFQ to go find somebody, like an outside entity to come in and assist with that. Because I want to make sure it's done. Also, all the reconciliation, just from a timing standpoint, so other people are aware, we can't do the next year's audit until our reconciliations are done. So, and we're not gonna be late, so, like, that's not something I'm like slow playing, aggressively trying to get those things done.
Appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, you know, under like compliance and all that, you know, on your standard in the CPA, you know, you see it. What do you got to report? I mean, is they gonna come in here and forensically audit this now, or?
My guess would be that would be unlikely. It's probable we would get a strongly worded letter. And we would get certain action, like, hey, we need to see, these funds in a separate account, by this time, or we need to see a corrective action plan at this time. Similar to what TCEQ does when we have an issue with the wastewater treatment plant or something, right? That's typically their first level of action. For them to physically come in, typically it would have to be a catastrophic situation, and for the people that caused it to still be there. Right, there's already been actions taken to address these items, and typically the state looks at that and says, okay, we'll just, you know, do our due diligence and follow what's happening, is typically what will happen. I can't speak to exactly what will happen, because I have not asked any of my contacts what is gonna happen, but that is typically how it is done.
Gotcha. So I mean, you know, just going back, you know, just trying to be organized for you. Just wanna know where it went.
Yeah, we're, you know, once we know how much it should be, we can then start to look and see, you know, okay, at this point, they stopped using general fund money and we're using, like we're pulling from impact fee money. And this is the range of purchases during that time that they would have been draining impact fund cash.
So the hot tax, the 2024 was one of the reports that was actually there on the portal. Great job. I know it's a lot to do. Day-to-day amounts, 65,000 plus. Are we able to answer that today, or?
I don't have.
Can we look at that as far as the audit?
So we could definitely audit.
Who submitted that report and said day-to-day amounts on the?
We could definitely look at that. Most likely, that is a report that was provided to us. But
Okay.
we could definitely, as with lots of those things that come from the comptroller to us, right? So like sales tax as an example, right? That gets sent to the comptroller then a couple months later sends us what we earned during that month, right? Typically those things we get reports from that entity. Same with taxes, right? The county tax collector sends us the money, but also sends us a report showing how that money came to be and what it relates to, what percentage it is, all that kind of thing. So that's the most likely where that report came from. But
it's in there. You know, I don't want to beat you up and you know, keep talking because we talk for days on it. I know it's a lot of information. You got that? You're more than welcome to call me.
Okay.
I know you guys would set up the meeting. My time, I'm always bouncing everywhere, so
Yeah.
whatever we can do.
Yeah, I will go through this. I'll make my notes, and then I'll get you a quick response, like of just general. This is what I see. This is my thoughts on it,
Sure.
and then we'll make sure all this information is included.
Is it scope worthy?
It's certainly a place to start.
Okay.
Again, some of it's probably a little too broad.
Okay. Well, let's talk about how to narrow that down.
Well, so I would say, like if you're talking about impact fees and where it was spent, right? So you're going to limit that to years. So
The years in there.
It is.
I think I
Okay.
gave you 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Not as harsh as 5 to 10. You know, that's a lot. But
Yeah. So then definitely that's a start. My one concern, and again, this is not me trying to get around it. This is just, it's entirely possible the answer to the question of where was the money spent is just, hey, they spent $33.97 at Staples, and you know, they did this payroll, and they just paid bills.
Right.
It's entirely possible that is the answer, just normal general fund bills. And so even though that shouldn't happen, and it's against all the rules for it to happen, that is the most likely answer. But we can definitely dig in and provide more detail. My only worry would be a forensic audit would just be an expensive way to do that, whereas we could do this through a more targeted, smaller financial audit, and it'd be a lot cheaper for a lot of what you're looking for, at least to begin with.
Well, I don't think I saw it on the annual audit for the last 2 years, so I mean, that was.
Yeah, so in this
that was
instance, we would actually do a RFP specifically for impact fees, right? And in that instance, they would, instead of doing impact fees as a high level sample, they would do a much deeper review. Not forensic audit where they're trying to like track a receipt to a receipt, but at a much deeper level where we would be able to provide much more like, this is roughly when general funds ran out. Let's assume they used hot tax next. These are the expenses that would have been in that range, or these are the expenses that would have been in the using of our enterprise fund, also incorrectly range. So like this is roughly when general fund ran out of money. These are the next set of expenses that occurred. These are the ones that were likely used for that cash. But that would be my recommendation on that instead of a forensic audit. But depending on what that finds, there could be a follow-up where you say, okay, this section of, like this 3 months, this section of expenses appears to have been wildly problematic.
There's a lot in there.
Dig deep into that.
Yeah, there's a lot in there already for you. Yeah, so that was another thing. I don't understand why none of that was talked about in the annual audits, but.
So, a quick explanation on that. An annual audit has a materiality threshold, and like hot tax itself, we'd only have a few things that qualify over that materiality threshold for an entity this size. Well, I mean, they certainly looked at some of the transactions that were supposedly used for hot tax, right? If there were any denoted as used for hot tax in the system, they would have looked at the biggest of them. But if there's only 5 transactions that were used for hot tax, and I'm just making up numbers right now. If there were only 5 transactions, they maybe looked at 2, right? The 2 biggest transactions. They say, okay, well, this transaction is viable for hot tax. Then they're not going to make a comment on that. They do try and produce what the hot tax number should be, right? So if you do look at the audit, they do make an estimate of what, the best estimate they can make of what should be in impact fees, should be in hot tax. If you do dig into the audit, they do have what those estimates should be based on their review. Are they to the penny accurate? Probably not, but are they?
I'm not worried about $6.
Are they close?
There's some budget numbers that were varying on $6 from this file to this file. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes, and there should be, I believe, about 2.5 million in impact fees. I believe that should be around the number. Those 2.5 million is what we had committed to pay the 2 construction projects that the council just recently approved. The water line so that the new school can open, and the sewer line so that the residents on Newman Road actually could have sewer, which they haven't had for a year. Those were dedicated to be paid out of impact fees. I don't have impact fees to pay them, but so I'm pretty confident saying there should have been at least 2.5 million in impact fees, maybe up to 2.75, somewhere in that range. Look at impact fees and how it should have been. That's what I think. And then for hot tax, it probably, I hate to even speculate on a number, probably in the hundreds of thousands.
About 354 or something like
in that range.
Somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
That would be close to an estimate that I would have come up with as well. I have not done enough work to provide a good estimate, but in that range. And should those monies be separated in another account? Absolutely. Pooled accounting is not recommended to be used for this exact reason. To use it, you have to have someone in finance, and multiple people, to be honest, in finance, that are incredibly good, incredibly diligent, incredibly detailed, and never leave. And that is not what happened. And that's, you know, a big part of why we're here is that you lose track. When you see money, you just see money. You don't see, oh, well, this money is this and this money is this. You just see a number. That's just the way humans are. They don't, like, you know, when you look at your bank account, you don't see 7 numbers in your main checking account because you're like, well, I'm mentally saving $100 for this and I'm mentally saving money for that. You just see one number. Even if you are on paper trying to keep track of all those other things. You're like, ooh, there's this amazing deal on this new TV I need for the Super Bowl, right? It costs $200, right? When you look at your checking account, you see it's got $500 in it and you're like, awesome, I'm good. Not realizing that, oh, 300 of that needs to go to rent in a week, and like you just see that number, right? And you're like, oh, I'm good. I've got that. I've got plenty of money to do that. And I'm not saying you specifically, but just as a general way, like as a way to try to help people understand kind of
I do it.
what it is we're talking
I'm
about.
gonna say it was about to you, you know, I get it.
But like, you know, to help people kind of understand what it is we're talking about, and why it's so easy, right? Just think about your own checking account in that way, right? Like, you rarely think ahead and are like, oh, I gotta make sure I've got this, this, and this, and I'm wanting to do this, this, and this, so I'm gonna pre-segregate that money in my head. But then there's something you're gonna buy, and you're like, my checking account says I've got this, I'm good, right? In a much larger way, that's the same thing here, right? They're looking at a single number, and they're like, oh, well, there's money in the account for that, right? Again, it's why pooled cash is never recommended, no matter how good. Even if all the finance staff is amazing and could do it, it's still never recommended because it's so easy to get into situations. Nothing directly like this usually is caught long before where we are now. And I can't answer why it wasn't caught.
We have the comptroller's, you know,
Yeah.
instructions not to do it. Law for the impact fees, not to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot, there's,
Some guy should have said,
Somebody-
whoever was the account back then, or, you know.
so, I will say the auditor has had pool cash as their finding for, I think, all 4 years that this auditor has done the audit. So this is not something that they was not known about. Now, I don't know if it was ignored, but it was certainly known. But yeah, that's, this is exactly why you don't do it, and yes, it should have been caught 3.5 years ago.
It was.
This should have been brought up, not just the pool cash, but the current situation in the city should have been discussed 3.5 years ago, should have been brought up and plans made. I don't know why it got this far, I don't know how it got this bad. I can say,
Do these reports go in front of council?
only, so the audit reports get sent to council, but I don't know what presentations have been made previously since I wasn't here.
I'll look.
But there should be online. I don't know that the responses were ever written for any of the findings about what we're gonna do. Those kind of things I just don't know the answers to. But all of this, it should have been brought up a long time ago that there were issues. And I will say, and this is not about me or Ms. Holly, but it is good that the city had new people come in that were willing to say something, because honestly, if it had gone another month, I don't know that anyone could have saved the city. And we're holding on by, you know, by a string. Luckily, everybody has been working, has been great, and we've made a lot of progress, but it's still, like, the situation was really bad.
I got you. Well, we've a lot of time here. I believe you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Good talking. I think we're on 4. 04.
He was, well, I skipped mine.
Okay, 5.
Bingo.
Sure.
So some of this is gonna be, I guess, add-ons to some of the stuff that was brought up.
Sure.
And also some questions. Does the city have a threshold to report fraudulent activity, credit card abuse, or anything like that?
If it is truly fraudulent, a penny would need to be reported. If it is not fraudulent, but just like a mistake, then that should be probably a few $100, I would think.
Unauthorized use of a credit card, is that something that?
Sure, that's the kind of thing that would, again, it's not guaranteed to be fraudulent, again, there's some intricacies with that, but, it should certainly be noted, yes.
So, with your time here, my question to you is, what would you recommend currently for a forensic audit?
So, my recommendation would be, I don't know enough to make a great recommendation. Again, and, I'm not trying to not answer the question. My focus has been so focused on keeping the city from going bankrupt. I spend 2/3 of my day every day working on ways to keep the city afloat, make sure we're getting our bills paid. As has been noted, there were hundreds of bills that weren't paid, right? Well, we've already paid more than 400 of those past bills. We're probably gonna end up in the 500, 600, maybe even 700 total that weren't paid. So just trying to get through all of that. Plus we're transitioning systems, not just in finance, but budget and permits and HR and I'm involved in all of that. Like, I have just not had enough time to do a lot of looking back. I've trusted what the audit has said, which is that everything is terrible. And when I see that, my first reaction is I have to build controls. That any individual thing isn't as important as the controls that control everything. And so that's where our focus has been, is in building those controls.
One of the things that I would personally look into is permits, inspections, remodels, new construction. Did they pay for the permits? Did they pay for the inspections? Were they overlooked? Were they overlooked intentionally? That kind of stuff. New building and especially remodels.
You want to limit it to residential or construction included, or commercial included?
Yeah,
Okay.
mostly commercial.
Mostly commercial?
To add on to the grade all, that's always been a mystery for years. We tried to get answers for that. Then we also found out that they had allegedly scrapped the grade all, not following proper procedures, because it would go to auction and then somebody could scrap it from there. Well, nobody's ever been able to produce the weights for the scrap.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be not just that, but all the scrap that's being scrapped out of the public works. Where's that? Who's been getting the checks for that?
I would hope the city.
A big one for the city is gonna be 501c3s. There has been nefarious activities with that. City attorney knows about it. But again, the city of Marque never produced any records for it.
Will these be payments to 501c3s, payments from 501c3s?
Two 501c3s.
Two 501c3s.
And are the 501c3s in compliance?
Okay. I'm not 100% certain that whether they're in compliance would be the city's due diligence on everything, but we can certainly, if we knew that we're not in compliance, we would be responsible.
Then that would be part of the checks and balances that we need to have in place to make sure.
But typically, we would just look and verify that, like the Secretary of State, and everything has been registered as in compliant. We wouldn't do due diligence beyond that.
Well, just the amount of money given to 501, and who, because there's a lot of them. Again, credit cards, there's a lot there. And just because that somebody can doesn't mean that they should. Just because I can go buy an $8,000 laptop doesn't mean I should go buy an $8,000 laptop. So there's a lot of you know, abuse and stuff like that, so.
Sure, so that falls not under fraud, because typically those purchases would be approved by somebody.
City manager.
That falls under, financial,
Judiciary.
yeah, financial due diligence, fiscal responsibility,
Application.
those kinds of things, which are almost never fraud. I'm not saying they're not bad, they just,
Corruption.
from a legal definition, they're not fraudulent.
Travel per diem, so when I first got elected on council, I was given a check, and I thought it was my glorious $50 check for taking all the abuse up there. Well, it was actually like a $450 check, and it was handed to me, and it was for something that I was supposed to. I didn't attend the event, and I said, well, I can't take this because I didn't go, and it was per diem and stuff like that. And they said, well, it's yours, we already issued it. And I said, well, I'm not gonna take it. And they said, well, it's yours. And I said, well, again, I'm not gonna take this check from you. I didn't attend the event. So I think that needs to be looked into, and I didn't, I refused the check. So where it went from there, I don't know. But if it was so willingly, easily to give me a check that I didn't have anything to do with, I didn't participate in the event, then how much more has that happened? So it really, that the per diem stuff like that, the reimbursements, that's gonna be, I believe, a big thing for an audit.
Okay, yeah, we could definitely wrap a lot of that into, like a singular travel, topic, where we, are there specific, year numbers to the last travel, noted the last 2 years?
I would do
Refer
it
further,
since 2020.
since 2020?
Tax exempt usage.
Okay.
Who's using it? Where are they using it at? Is it being used fraudulently? And the answer is yes, because it's, private citizens can't just go use the tax exempt form at random stores. Points with credit cards, Sam's Club cards. Who's using those points? On top of the Sam's Club credit card, who all's using the Sam's Club credit card? Excuse me, it's not a credit card, it's a Sam's Club card.
Yeah. Well, is this just to get you into Sam's?
Correct.
Okay.
It's not an actual credit card. So what you'll see on the report is that there's been credit card payments that are no affiliation to the city. So how did they get into Sam's to use that card? Were they the people that used the points, or who used the points that were accrued for the city?
Okay, so there, just so I can make sure I'm completely, so there is the membership that lets you get in the door,
That's the one, yep.
right? That isn't used to pay. So are you worried about somebody getting in the door and then paying with their own credit card?
Correct, who's using it, and then where did the points go that were accrued? We're spending 10, 20, 30, 40,000, that's a lot of points there.
Sure,
It
well,
can be
it's-
used as cash. You can buy anything you want with it.
Sure, I guess, if somebody uses their own if somebody uses their own personal card to make the actual checkout payment, the only thing they use the Sam's card for is to get in the store, right? I don't know anywhere near enough about Sam's to know how that's tracked, but, typically those points would go on the credit card that's used, I would think.
No, it's stores, the points go to the store accumulates those for you. But anybody, if they have that card, could go in there, use that card, and you only need a picture of it. They can scan it, and they can go in there and they can make purchases. When they check out, they'll say, do you want to use your Sam's Club points? And then they can say yes or no. They can use the points, which who knows how much is there, and then they can check out at that point.
I honestly don't know if the city as a governmental entity can actually gain points on the Sam's Club card.
They can.
They can, alright. There are restrictions on some of those things, but I'm not familiar, I'm not familiar enough. I don't, nothing against Sam's, I'm just not, I don't have any memberships, so I don't know how any of that works.
You should shop there, cheap. Impact fees, has everybody been charged? Or have people been given breaks? That's another thing that we need to look into.
Time frame on that?
2020.
2020? mean, is this, mostly residential, mostly commercial?
Everything.
Everything?
Mhm. And then non-businesses, so as a business owner, I can't just cut random people checks. There's a policy for that. And for people to not have a business entity or insurance or even just a name, we can't just pay a name, but we do that. And it's been consistent for years, over the last 5 years. So I would look at who the people are that just got checks cut to them. Who are they? Is there a business? Why is there no business? Did they have insurance? Are they getting confidential information, maybe stuff out of finance sent to them on an unsecured server, that kind of stuff? I would look into that.
Okay, those are very good. So the individual checks, I will say, it can be very deceiving when you just look at a check register and see a lot of names on it. Any individual that closes a utility account that had a deposit gets a check back of however much deposit they had left, and that has to go to a random, that person's name. So there are lots of checks written to names for things that are completely legitimate.
And I'm speaking more specific to people that are being paid by the city for work that don't have a legitimate business that they're collecting money from the city for.
Okay, so definitely focus on contract and recurring payments for that.
And water department, it needs audited from the last 5 years. Billing, usage, is there people that are maybe council members that aren't having bills, water bills? Who's getting bills waived? There's just a lot of questions around that water department, and that I've experienced personally 2 times since I've lived in Marque, since 2013.
And is it just water or water and sewer and
The whole thing,
the whole thing, the whole bill?
whole thing, yep.
And so, concerns about waived bills. What were your other concerns?
I've checked, make sure all the elected officials are all paying their appropriate bills. Go back 5 years on that as well. Electronics, I would do a deep dive on, how many electronics the city owns, whether it's laptops or iPads or GoPros or, videography equipment, all that kind of stuff, since 2020 to current, where did it go?
So, on this one, I can give you an update already. So we are already working towards creating a up-to-date, accurate inventory list with ownership tied to it. I don't mean like physical, like who actually has it in their pocket, right? So that is something that's already being worked on for all electronics. So that we have a list, and then we can then check that list going back to make sure that everybody continues to have the thing they're supposed to have, and we can see who has what, like who's actually been issued what. So that is already in progress. It's at the beginning of it, but it is in progress. And that also includes, everything down to monitors in offices and big screens. All those things are being there's going to be an electronic inventory that is created that has, date of purchase, amount of purchase, where it's located, who it's tied to, when they check it out, and then there will be inventory checks every once we're in a better finance staff situation, every 6 months. Right now, probably every year, just there's only so much time to go back and validate those things. But that is something that's being worked on. We can also definitely go and look and see, pull a listing of all electronic purchases. Our IT should have a rough list of what those are and what the state of those things are.
I would look specifically between, when people left, new people came on, in between those dates, major purchases, specifically to make it easier for you.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, describe that again.
So when, IT directors left, new ones were brought on in between those dates and that time frame. A lot of big screens, if we could track those things, like 72 inches, glass screens. And then, Amazon is gonna be another major, even as a council person, an elected official, we're supposed to be able to see items when we're requesting what was being spent, or I just get a bill. Well, a bill doesn't tell you anything. So there's obviously more to it that they don't want, obviously, council to see, so I would definitely look at the Amazon account for the last 5 years. And the issue you're gonna have with credit cards is gonna be who's using them, because they traded them off and back and forth, and so.
So yeah, so I will say, and this is just gonna be an unfortunate, situation is, who, until, very recently, who used what card for what, as far as I'm aware, was not tracked, right? So who had which card and when were they using to purchase it? So like, the card that actually has the name, like Marque Police Department, might not have been being used by the Marque Police Department. It might have been used by,
City manager.
sure, for, a purchase and then give it back to the Marque City Manager. And that could have happened with all sorts of cards when they were just out in the wild, right? And I will say, a forensic audit can attempt to track that down, but it will be like very difficult to determine who specifically held what card at what time, unless the purchase seems like there's a record of who signed a receipt or a video of something that we can track down. So one, without subpoena authority, and forensic audits done by any place that isn't a law enforcement entity, don't have subpoena authority, it does become difficult to track down some things. And that would be one thing that would be hard to track down from an individual purchase basis. So I'm not saying we can't try, but like, there is some limitation in what can be done in that area. Just as a heads up. I don't want inaccurate expectations by anybody in terms of like what can be done and what can't be done. So I will say, is that the list?
Yes, sir, okay, for now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate this. Let me kind of go through real quickly. So for scrap, there should be record of all scrap kept somewhere. If there's not, of all scrap purchases and what accounts those were given to, then that's something that does not require a forensic audit to just get that information. If it doesn't exist, then we can certainly look and see, well, kind of like with the permits where apparently there's no records.
That's correct.
Right? It might be hard for us to find the answer for that.
It's a titled object, so I think that, who is the title to it as well.
Sure, but so not everything that's scrapped is titled, right? So, for example, fences, old fences that are falling down aren't titled. Those are scrapped.
I think the gray all has a title to it.
A grade would have a title to it, yes, and we can definitely figure out. We can attempt to track it down, especially if we have an old VIN, something with the VIN number on it, or we can actually send that off to DMV, and they can actually provide records on where that is currently, if it's still in existence, and registered somewhere. If it's not, that gives us strong indication that it was destroyed, right? And then from there, we can kind of.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the machine was only, when you're buying machinery and you're purchasing other equipment, you don't look at the age of a piece of machinery, you look at the hours. And that's what determines the value of the machine, it's not necessarily the age of it. And something with such low hours, it would be very odd for it to go to a scrapyard. But that's for you guys to determine, I guess.
Yeah, and again, that might be a situation where, again, it's unlikely that no matter what was done, that it was, assuming the scrap money wasn't put in somebody's pocket, right? Assuming the city made a decision to scrap it and that those funds went back to the city. that might be a bad decision, but that wouldn't, if it was a decision that followed all the rules and approvals, that would not be a fraudulent.
Well, because it has a title, actually, it would go to auction, would be the proper process, and then if somebody wanted to buy it at auction, then scrap it, that would be the process, my understanding.
So not everything is required to, it's best practice to send it to auction. If you could, have proof that you would make more money scrapping than auction, if you had a document that did a comparison, you would be able to not go to auction and go to scrap. But you should have a reason.
Sure.
So, as is unfortunately the case, it's rarely as simple as X is always the answer. There's always little things that come up that can change scenarios. And I know that's annoying for everybody. It's annoying for me knowing most of them, but there are those little nuances. The 501c3s, that's definitely something that we could do as a forensic audit, or we could do in it first as a regular review, just to try and get a handle on what all that information looks like before sending it to use as forensic.
When I've asked in the past, the answer was, we don't know who we gave the money to. And my response is, if you don't know who you gave the money to, then you probably shouldn't be giving out the money to them.
That is a good practice.
But I know some of the entities, and I have actually seen the letters from the lawyer demanding money back. It's just one example. But there's been others, remodeling a church in the city of Marque, 501c3 status, but we need to know all of it. We need to know if it's happening, show us. And
so that I think the first step of that, to be best, would not be a forensic audit, just from the information, and just either bringing in an outside party or forming even an ad hoc committee to work with the city to see everything, right? Would be where to start, and then once that information is all gathered and looked at, that's when okay, we see enough. We can see there's 800 payments to 501c3s, right? There's these weird inaccuracies. Let's focus on these weird inaccuracies and make that the scope of a forensic audit. So my recommendation on that would be a second step, a first step to kind of get a full handle on what the information is. Because even all the work you've done, I'm sure you don't have a complete handle on exactly what everything is. Either because you couldn't get it, or because, for whatever reason, right? Understanding the thing is typically where you want to start before you go to a forensic audit, because you can typically narrow your scope quite a bit by getting just that first level kind of informational piece. And then you can take a forensic audit that might cost, let's say, $30,000 and drop it down to a $10,000 forensic audit that's actually looking at the things you're actually wanting looked at. Because the others are very simple, yes, you gave your money to the Citizens Academy, right? Do we really want to review that? I'm just using that as an example, right? I think Ms. Yancey gave her money to a church one year, and some of those might not be things where we want to yeah, everybody knows that entity, we're good with that, maybe we don't want to look at those pieces. I'm just as examples.
and that's actually great that you brought that up, because discretionary funds is another one for the last 5 years. That's a big one, because we do have policies and procedures of how that money is to be utilized. If they're a 501c3, they have to be in good standing with the community. But to donate to a mayor of an adjacent city would, in my opinion, and there's probably, maybe but probably laws against that. To take tax dollars and donate to a mayor of another city. There's gotta be checks and balances from taking taxpayers' money and.
I don't believe you can donate taxpayer funds directly to a campaign. You could, I believe, donate taxpayer funds to an initiative, like build a park fund or something like that on a discretionary fund.
Or a 501c3 in Pearland, and then buy tickets to an event that you brought citizens from the Marque. I mean, in that case, I could use my discretionary funds to go buy tickets to the monster truck show. I mean, where's the limit? So I would definitely look at the discretionary funds and, just make sure that all the checks and balances are in place.
Yeah.
And that there's no fraud, corruption involved with that as well.
Again, that one I would start with just with informational, like let's just see what was spent, and that's a limited enough thing that we can kind of just look through that and kind of figure out kind of what that looks like before taking it, to the next step. Per diem from travel, that we include in the travel, that's totally fine. Again, I think a lot of that is gonna end up being policies that you were allowed to use per diem. Did people abuse it? Did people, play the system? Almost certainly. Whether or not there's fraud is again, that's gonna be much more complicated.
And with that one, it goes back to checks and balances, is the person, the city clerk, or whoever is responsible for, actually setting that stuff up, is that person actually doing it? Or is that person saying here to my assistant, saying you do it, because they know that that might not be the proper protocol? So that's something that I would look into as well, the checks and balances of the per diem, the travel and all that kind of stuff, to make sure that each person is doing their job appropriately.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. Again, that would be more of a policy review than a fraud review. I'm not trying to say none of your stuff is right for a forensic audit. I'm just trying to walk you through kind of the best way that my recommendation for how to kind of work towards that. So the SAMS points, I'm gonna have to get more familiar before I can even talk intelligently on this. Like how they can be used. I know you're explaining to me, but I've gotta see what that looks like in an accounting book before I can
And not just him, but do we have other credit cards we have points worth that accrue throughout the years?
Yeah, again, I don't know the answers, to those things. Typically, when you get a card for a city, you try not to get points accrued. You try and get reduced, reduced interest, but also, reduced cost, right? Where you use this card at this entity, you pay 95% instead of 100%. Typically, because that actually saves the city direct money for needed purchases. That typically is what you try and find. I don't know what arrangement we have here. Again, we are trying to take care of crimes under control. But we definitely look at that. Again, I think I have to get my head around this before I can get a good comment on whether it would be good for a forensic audit or not. I just don't want to speak without the level of knowledge to say on that. Impact fees, totally viable for a forensic audit, also totally viable to start with an informational gathering and then narrow down scope, right? And again, a lot of the informational gathering, the reason I recommend that is, let's figure out what the actual, what is the population? What is everything we're looking at? And then do we care about all of that, or do we care about these things? And typically, if you can narrow it to these things, that makes a forensic audit infinitely more effective and affordable, right? Individual checks, again, on this one, this would be a pretty big population to start out with, and we'd have to definitely pull out all of the refunds and standardized ones, but definitely the ones where there's reoccurring checks, or checks we have to people where we have a contract with an individual and not a business. Those are definitely things that we can look at. Again, I would recommend informational. Let's see what that looks like. And I know everybody's tried to do information requests. As a city, there's no redaction that's required for things, it's not that we can necessarily find more information, but sometimes we can see the whole picture a little better. But again, that one, definitely kind of this is a good starting place to narrow in on, and then from there we can definitely okay, yes, for some reason we're paying this entity or this individual frequently, and I don't understand why, and we don't have a reason documented why. But we could also find out that, we're paying this individual on a regular basis. We have a contract with their business, but they registered as a vendor under their own name. Now, is that best practice on how to register as a vendor? No, but if that's how they choose to register as a vendor, it's kind of it's not illegal. And so maybe that's one of the things we're like, we understand what happened here, and we could change our policy to not allow that in the future, but it's unlikely that that's fraud. It's just they were filling their contract just using their name as the vendor instead of the business.
If I hire somebody, I either hire them directly, but if I don't hire them directly, then they're gonna get a, I can't think of the name for it right now, but there's.
A 1099.
A 1099.
Yeah.
So, and the same, there's gotta be something similar.
We have 1099s as a city. We produce plenty.
But they should have a business. There should be some type of LLC or something if we're gonna cut people a check for $60 an hour or $150 an hour. There should be a business entity, not just a name. And if it's not a business, you know, are they insured? If they're working with, they have insurance, are they bonded, and those things.
Sure. And those are definitely things that should be sussed out as part of the vendor process. And we actually like bring in their vendor information and determine whether they meet qualifications. Again, I can't speak to what was done in the past, but those are things that should be done. And there should be, if there are recurring payments, that should be something that's been approved by council. Even in just a MOU or an action item, like, yes, we're good with you to work with that individually. So there should be council action for recurring payments, unless they're only making like $10 a month. Like, at which point you could theoretically argue that it's below a de minimis threshold and doesn't matter. But I doubt what we're talking about is $10 a month payments. The utility department. So this one, these two specific things can definitely be looked into because those are very specific. We could do them as forensic audits. I think these could also very easily just be like pull every bill for every elected official for the last 5 years. And
I would appreciate
that.
Somebody saying that I'm not paying my water bill or the
Yeah.
city's giving me discounts or anything like that.
Yeah, so I will say, I don't know about elected officials not paying their bills or getting anything waived. That shouldn't be happening under really any circumstance. I don't want to say it's impossible, but like maybe there's some sort of crazy circumstance where that would be a thing that could happen, but from a very broad general rule, that would not be something that we would that I would recommend. In terms of somebody receiving a discount or having their bill waived, there are instances where the city does have authority to say an elderly individual had a husband pass and they were unable to pay their bill when they were trying to get finances together. The city does have authority to provide assistance, right, on discretionary terms. It should be very rarely used, and typically it should be waiving of a fee, not actually paying a bill, but it certainly is within the city's authority to do that for those types of instances. Those instances should be well documented as to what happened, and it shouldn't be consistent, right? It should like a one-off instance. And typically the way you would handle those, just from a information standpoint, is there are agencies that what they do is they help people in emergency situations with funding. Some of that funding is used for bills, right? So rent, water, utility, all that sort of stuff. But we can definitely see who has had something waived and why. Again, it should be a fairly rare occurrence at them. Discounts are a little more complicated because discounts might be for like a certain policy that we're trying to implement. So like I can, as a preview for Monday, we're proposing new water rates. It's on the agenda, everybody can see it. I'm finalizing that ordinance right now. One of the pieces of that is a proposed discount on usage rate for senior citizens, right? It's not permanent yet. Those are like, it's better to council and there's a whole lot of steps, but as a way to try and keep seniors' bills down, I'm proposing an actual discount that would apply to their consumption usage for seniors as a way to try and assist that specific population, right? I don't know if there's been any kind of initiatives like that in the past that might have had discounts. but there are times, during the Christmas holidays, sometimes there's a, hey, we're gonna, waive the first 1,000 gallons. If the city puts in a financial surplus, they might do something like that, right? As a Christmas gift to all their citizens. Not something we would do right now, given our current situation, but, right, if we were in if we had a massive surplus, that would be something that like I would consider be like, hey, we want to give back to the citizens instead of trying to do like a tax rollback or send money, try and send money to all the citizens. It's much easier to say, let's do a reduction on the water bill. Like we'll give the first 1,000 gallons for free, right? That's a much easier thing to do than the much more complicated other options that exist, right? It's possible there's been some of those in the past. Again, as someone who doesn't live here, I have no idea on those, but there definitely shouldn't be consistent, reoccurring forgivenesses. That should not be happening unless council has approved an arrangement, right? Again, if somebody's situation is so bad that council feels like the city should provide them every other month a waived bill, that's something council would need. Like that's not within the purview of the city's approved. That would need to be approved by council. And again, I don't know if there's any of those types of situations. I've only watched back meetings for like 3 months from before I started. I have not had time to go back and catch up beyond that. The electronic equipment we already talked about. Amazon account, again, I think that one is best to start with just pulling all the Amazon purchase lists and just like, okay, what are these purchases are something that makes sense for city to purchase, and kind of just get rid of all of those, and then you're just left with a much smaller list, and then you can start looking more closely at a list like that. I think that's a better way to approach that. Again, kind of narrow it down before you take the expensive step. And then discretionary funds, again, that one to me doesn't really need a forensic audit. That's just what were all the discretionary funds spent on, right? And do we even know? Is that, I'm not 100% certain how that was tracked previously.
It depends on who gets the open record, depending on what they're allowed to see or not. So there have been records pulled, and it varies to who gets.
So, but yeah, that I think is just easier to just kind of pull a list, and then I think most of it will, okay, that makes total sense, and then some things are like, well, that's a little weird, and then you can kind of narrow down from there and focus again. So that's every one of those. I know you probably have more as well, but this is definitely a good place to start. I hope you do not expect the answers filed this by Monday.
No, sir.
Because honestly, I already have 15 million things on my agenda to do just by tomorrow. So all this will get written up. It'll all get put on the tracking sheet so that everybody can see it. And then after the next meeting on Monday, we'll add everything from that meeting onto the tracking sheet. And that's where we'll kind of figure out whether or not we want to have more meetings, or whether we want to provide additional scopes, or whether we want to start narrowing down a list of scopes to like what actions want to be taken in addressing those scopes. What kind of generation do we want to do for an RFP versus, an informational pool? Where do we think the most high priority things are, and kind of work through that.
And for the record, I'm not giving you a directive, I'm just saying these are the areas that I would look. So.
No, I appreciate it. As with everybody, it's a one-on-one conversation. That's the whole point of this, is like me talking to a citizen. Right now you are a citizen, not a councilperson. And so it's just me talking to a citizen one-on-one, trying to figure out what they would like looked at. Right? We are listening, we are acting based on what we hear, and we hope people can see that transparency is coming. I mean, some of it's already there. Like again, almost all of fiscal year 25 for finance is online for anybody to look at for anything they want. It's not all there, but most of it's there, and we're working to get the rest of it there. All the things we can't legally put up. Again, there are certain things that we, for legal reasons, can't put up. But we do provide the net of those things, like the totals of all of that. So, we all work towards that. I think that's it. Appreciate it. Is there a number 6?
No, you see,
Nope.
number 6?
We're good? All right, I know we went, just a hair over time. I appreciate everybody for coming. We thank you. We do want you to know that, this is something that's going to continue, going forward on not just, this topic, but on many topics. We have already scheduled out, 2 more for this calendar year. So we're gonna do 2 sessions on the new proposed water and sewer rates and setup that we're proposing. Those will be between this next council meeting on the 27th and the following council meeting on the 10th of November, for everybody to come in and ask questions about the new proposal. Assuming council doesn't strike it down in that first meeting, but we're hopeful that council will at least allow it to move forward to the second meeting. I don't know. We're not doing it because we dislike citizens or anything. We're doing it because that fund doesn't produce enough revenue to cover its own costs, mostly of infrastructure replacement, which is old and falling apart. And so, like, it is done for a reason. It is gonna look different than your current setup. We are making some changes to make it better and follow best practices. But our goal is also to have a calculator for you to go in and be able to type in a few pieces of information, and you'll see what your old bill looked like and what the new bill will look like, so you can compare back and forth. And our goal is to have that online early next week after. But then we'll also have 2 sessions for everybody to come and talk about it, just like this. And then we might have another set in the middle of November. We're not sure yet, but in early December, we're gonna have a set on understanding your tax bill, where everybody, we can come in and explain to everybody their tax bill, walk through how it works, what you're actually paying for in all the different line items. We'll also have some examples from other cities, so that you can compare what yours looks like to what somebody who lives somewhere else looks like, and you know, better apples to apples, look at those types of things. But we want you to understand what it is you're paying for in your tax bill. And so there'll be sessions on that as well in December. If there are any other ideas, we are welcome to hear them and work about them. Those are 2 that we definitely wanted to make sure we got done. And since you pay your taxes, you know, December, January, we wanted to do that before, while that was still a relevant thing. But yeah, so this is something that's going to continue, and it's not just always going to be finance. We are going to try and have a finance-related one once a month, but we are working on other departments for things that they can do as well to have these similar types of sessions, as well as publishing data from other departments as well in a more transparent way. All of that is in the works. We hope you appreciate all of that, and you can see that this administration is listening, is trying to do what everybody wants. We may not always be perfect, we may not always be as fast as everybody wants, but we are trying, we are working really, really hard to try and do everything we can. And with that, I will thank you all for coming, and please have a safe ride home and enjoy what little bit of your evening I've left you with.